The sun on that day was not a kind sun. It was a hammer of brass, beating down upon the compound of John and Mary, making the very air shimmer with heat and a coming storm. Mary stood in the center of the courtyard, her hands resting on the great round moon of her belly where her unborn child slept. She was 7 months full of hope, but her heart was a tiny, frightened bird in her chest. Her husband John, who once looked at her with eyes soft like a rainy evening, now stared with a fury that burned hotter than the afternoon. "Get out of my house." His voice cracked through the compound like a whip. "Leave this place today. You carry a shadow, not my child." Mary's world, which had felt so solid, began to crumble at the edges. "But I am your wife," she pleaded, her voice a broken whisper trying to be heard over the drumming in her ears. "I am carrying your child. Where do you want me to go? To the belly of the river?" The neighbors, who had shared laughter and soup with her, were now only shadows behind their windows, their silence louder than any shout. And then, from the doorway of their hut, came a sound that chilled her more than John's anger. It was a laugh, sharp and cold like a shard of broken pottery. It was her younger sister, Linda. She leaned against the doorframe, her arms folded, a smile on her face that did not reach her eyes. "You see," Linda said, her voice sweet with poison. "Even you don't know who you are. You are a ghost in your own life, Mary. A forgotten song." Those words from her own blood were the final blow. They did not just break her heart, they stole the very ground from beneath her feet. With the eyes of the entire village upon her and the laughter of her sister chasing her, Mary turned and walked out of the gate, leaving the only home she had ever known, stepping into a world that had suddenly become vast and terrifying. She walked without seeing, her feet carrying her down the red earth path that led away from the village. The leafy green arms of the plantain trees, which usually waved a friendly greeting, now seemed to point and mock her. The joyful chatter of the weaver birds in the tall grasses sounded like the gossip of the neighbors. Her tears fell, making dark spots in the red dust, each one a memory of a love that had turned to ash. She walked until the familiar paths became strange, until the sun began to bleed into the horizon, and her body, heavy with child and sorrow, could carry her no further. She collapsed at the roots of a great ancient tree, its branches like arms raised in prayer to the darkening sky, utterly alone. The world was a blur of fear and exhaustion when a gentle touch stirred Mary. An old man with a face like a kindly carved mask, etched with the lines of many seasons, was kneeling beside her. His eyes, deep and knowing, held no judgment, only concern. "Little mother," he said, his voice as rough and comforting as the bark of the old tree. "The night is not a time for one so full of life to be alone with the cold ground." He was Mr. Henry, a man who lived on the edges of a village Mary did not know. He did not ask her shameful story. He simply saw a person in need. He helped her to her feet and guided her, his steps slow and patient, to a small hut at the edge of the forest. It was old, its mud walls cracked and its thatched roof thin in places, but to Mary it was a palace. "It has been lonely for many years," Mr. Henry said, pushing the wooden door open. "It will be happy to have a song inside its walls again." He brought her a calabash of cool water and a bowl of warm, spicy porridge. As she ate, the first bit of warmth she had felt in days spread through her. This old man, a stranger, had offered her more kindness than her own family. He was the first thread of a new life, a fragile but strong thread of hope. That night, as the moon rose, a silver coin in the velvet sky, Mary lay on the simple mat in the hut. She could hear the sounds of the new village, the distant beat of a drum, the laughter of a family, sounds that were not for her, yet they did not feel like they were against her. She placed her hands on her belly and whispered to the child growing inside her. "Do not be afraid, little one. We have found a shelter. It is not grand and the roof may leak, but it is filled with a kindness that our own home forgot. We will be strong. We will learn the song of this new place." And for the first time since her exile, a tiny, brave seed of determination took root in her soul. The rains came many weeks later, not as a gentle shower but as a furious, drumming downpour that found every weak spot in the hut's roof. Mary was alone when the pains began, sharp and rhythmic like the storm outside. The wind howled and the thunder roared, but Mary was brave. She remembered the strength of her own mother, a woman who could carry firewood and a water pot on her head while singing a happy tune. With that memory giving her power, in the leaking hut with only the lightning for a candle, Mary brought a new life into the world. It was a boy with a strong cry that cut through the noise of the storm, a cry that announced, "I am here." She named him Sam, a name that meant heard by God, for she felt that in their deepest despair, A higher power had indeed heard her silent prayers. When Mr. Henry came at dawn, bringing dry firewood, he found Mary tired but glowing, the tiny boy wrapped snugly against her chest. "Ah!" he exclaimed, his face breaking into a wide smile. "He has brought his own son with him." And it was true. The storm had passed and the morning was clean and bright. Sam became Mary's tiny son. His smiles lit up the dark hut. His coos were a beautiful new language that filled the empty spaces. Life was a daily grind of hard work. Mary took on small jobs, carrying water for other families, grinding pepper and spices in the market, weaving strong baskets from reeds. Her hands, once soft, grew rough and strong. She would often go hungry, giving the best of the food to Sam so he would grow strong. She wore old, faded clothes so that she could save a few coins to buy him a new cloth for special occasions. At night, when Sam was asleep, she would sing to him the songs her mother had sung to her, songs of brave hunters and clever animals, pouring all the love she had into the small, sleeping body of her son. He was her joy, her purpose, her revenge against the sadness that had tried to swallow her. 9 years flowed by like the river in the dry season, sometimes slow, sometimes quick. The little hut was now a proper home, filled with Sam's laughter and the smell of simple, good food. Sam was 10 years old, a boy who was tall for his age, with bright, curious eyes that always seemed to be asking a question. He had a smile that could make the grumpiest market woman give him an extra piece of fruit. He was Mary's greatest pride, a living testament to her strength. On the morning of his 10th birthday, the air itself felt special. The sun seemed to shine just for him. "Mother," Sam said, his voice full of the excitement that only a child can hold, "for my birthday feast I wish for a fish. Big one. The biggest from the river, fried until its skin is golden and crispy like the leaves in the harmattan wind." His eyes shone with the dream of this delicious treat. Mary's heart, which had been light and happy, suddenly felt heavy as a stone. She looked into her small clay money pot. It was almost empty. The few cowrie shells inside were for tomorrow's yam. A big fish cost more than she had. She took Sam to the bustling market, her spirit hoping for a miracle. They stood by the fish seller's table, where the great silvery fish from the river were laid out on green plantain leaves. Sam pointed to the biggest one, his finger trembling with desire. Mary haggled softly with the seller, her voice barely a whisper, but the price was too high. She shook her head, took Sam's hand and led him away. Tears began to well up in Sam's eyes, not tears of anger but of a deep, crushing disappointment. He had asked for so little and even that was too much. The sight of his silent crying, of his slumped shoulders, was a pain sharper than any hunger Mary had ever felt for herself. It was the pain of a mother who could not give her son his simple dream. Sam's soft crying was a small, sad sound in the middle of the noisy, happy market. It was a sound that caught the ear of a man who was passing by. He was a neatly dressed man, his clothes clean and crisp, and he carried himself with a quiet importance. This was Mr. David, a trader from a faraway city who was known for his wisdom and his good heart. He did not see a crying child. He saw a small cloud of sadness that needed to be chased away. He knelt down so that his eyes were level with Sam's. "Young eagle," Mr. David said, his voice calm and deep, "why do your tears fall like rain on a sunny day?" Sam, too upset to speak, just pointed towards the fish seller's table. Mary, embarrassed, tried to pull Sam away, but Mr. David stood up and gave her a kind, understanding look. He walked to the table, paid for the biggest, most beautiful fish without a single word of haggling, and placed it gently into Sam's arms. The fish was so large that Sam had to hug it with both arms. Mary was overcome. This act of pure, unexpected kindness was like a cool rain on a parched land. She fell to her knees right there in the dusty market, not in shame but in gratitude. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "may the ancestors guide your path. May your own children multiply and be a blessing to you. May your kindness return to you 1,000-fold." Sam, his face now transformed by a brilliant, wet-eyed smile, hugged the fish as if it were a treasure chest. "Thank you, uncle. Thank you," he chirped. Mr. David simply smiled, patted Sam's head, and disappeared back into the crowd, a quiet angel who had delivered a miracle wrapped in silvery scales. Back in their hut, the big fish lay on the wooden cutting table, gleaming in the light from the fire. Sam danced around it, already imagining the delicious, flaky white meat inside. "Be careful of the bones, mother," he chirped. Mary smiled, her sharp knife in hand. "Do not worry, my joy. I will be the hunter and this fish will be my antelope." She made the first cut, the sharp blade slicing easily through the silver skin. She was preparing to clean it, to remove the insides, when the tip of her knife hit something hard. Click. She paused, frowning. The fish bone was not that hard. Carefully she cut around the object. Tucked deep inside the fish's belly, wrapped in a piece of old waterproof leaf, was a small, hard bundle. Her heart beat a little faster. Was this a lucky charm? A precious stone lost in the river? Sam watched, his eyes wide with curiosity. What is it, mother? Is it a jewel? Mary carefully unwrapped the leaf. Inside were a few ancient cowrie shells, white and polished by time. And nestled among them was something that made her breath catch in her throat. It was a photograph, faded and worn at the edges from its journey inside the fish. She picked it up with trembling fingers. It was a picture of a baby no more than a few months old, sleeping peacefully on a beautiful, patterned cloth. It was a picture she knew from the stories her mother had told her, a picture from a family album that had been lost many, many years ago. She turned the photograph over. On the back, in her mother's faint, familiar handwriting, were the words, "My Mary, 6 moons old. May your life be long and sweet." A cold shock, like a splash of river water, ran through her entire body. This was not just any picture. This was her picture. A picture she had never seen, a piece of her own story, delivered to her by a fish from the river on her son's 10th birthday. Mary did not sleep that night. The photograph felt hot in her hand, burning with a mystery she could not understand. Why was her baby picture inside a fish? Why was it wrapped with cowrie shells? The next morning, as the first rooster crowed, she wrapped the bundle carefully in a clean cloth, took Sam by the hand, and went to see the one person in the village who could see the unseen, the old priest, Father Paul, who was known to speak with the wisdom of the ancestors. Father Paul lived in a small house behind the village church, surrounded by ancient trees. He took the bundle from Mary, his old, wise hands handling it with respect. He studied the photograph, the cowries, and even smelled the leaf it was wrapped in. His face, usually calm, grew grim and serious. "My daughter," he began, his voice low and powerful. "This is a very powerful and dangerous magic. This is not just about a quarrel with a husband." He held up the photograph. "This picture is not just a memory. It is a connection. It connects you to your mother, to her blessings, to your own spirit name, to your very roots. It is the anchor of your destiny." Then he pointed to the cowries. "These were used to pay for a dark work. Someone stole this picture. They wrapped it with these shells to pay the spirits to bury your destiny. They wanted to make you forget who you are. They wanted to make the world forget you, to make you a ghost in your own life so they could steal your place." He looked into Mary's eyes, his own filled with a fierce light. "But the river, which holds all secrets, did not agree. It has sung your song back to you. The Great Spirit is now restoring what was stolen." The words of Father Paul did not just give Mary an answer, they gave her a weapon. The confusion and sadness she had carried for 10 years melted away, replaced by a burning fire of purpose. She was not a forgotten woman. She was a queen who had been tricked off her throne. She looked at Sam, her son, who was watching her with big, serious eyes. "Sam," she said, her voice now strong and clear, "we are going on a journey. We are going back to the city, not to beg but to reclaim what is ours." For the next few days she prepared. She was not the broken woman who had been exiled. She was a warrior preparing for battle. She held her head high. She walked with a new strength. When the day came to leave, Mr. Henry was at the door of the hut. "I always knew you were a special seed, blown here by a strong wind," he said. "Now it is time for you to grow back in your own forest." He gave her a small carved wooden bird for good luck. The journey back to the city was long, but Mary felt no fatigue. With every step she rehearsed the truth. She was Mary, daughter of grace, connected to a long line of strong women. She had a right to her name, her home, and her life. As they finally neared the familiar paths of her old village, people stopped their work to stare. Whispers flew like leaves in the wind. "Is that Mary? She has returned. And look at the boy, so tall and strong." They saw not a shamed woman, but a confident mother and a fine son, walking with a purpose that demanded respect. Mary did not look at the whispering crowds. Her eyes were fixed on the compound of John, her heart beating a steady, powerful drum of justice. The compound of John had grown quieter over the years. The laughter had dried up, replaced by a cold silence. John, who had once been so quick to anger, was now a man weighed down by a hollow life. His marriage to Linda had been like drinking salt water. It looked like a solution, but it only made him thirstier for real happiness. Linda herself had grown sharp and bitter, her beautiful face now often twisted in a permanent frown. On this day, as Mary and Sam entered the compound, chaos broke out. John stared as if seeing a ghost from a happy past. Linda's face turned pale with a fear that was 10 years old. "You," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Mary. "Why have you come back to haunt us?" But John was no longer a blind man. He saw the strength in Mary's eyes, the fine boy standing beside her, and he saw the guilty terror on Linda's face. The years of suspicion finally boiled over. He grabbed Linda's arm, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "The truth, Linda? I have swallowed your lies for 10 years. Speak the truth now, or the earth itself will curse you." Surrounded by the staring eyes of the gathered villagers, under the pressure of her husband's rage and the silent strength of the sister she had wronged, Linda's spirit broke. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Yes, I used to charm," she confessed, her voice a ragged tear. "I was jealous of her. I stole her baby picture, the one that connected her to her mother's blessings and her true name. I wrapped it with cowries and gave it to a medicine man to throw into the deepest part of the river, to bury her destiny so I could take her place. I didn't just want her husband. I wanted her life, her happiness, everything." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The full, ugly truth was finally out. A great silence fell over the compound after Linda's confession. It was a silence of shock, of understanding, of a great wrong finally being made right. John let go of Linda's arm as if it were a hot coal. He turned and looked at Mary, and for the first time in 10 years he truly saw her. He saw the wife he had loved, the woman he had wronged, the mother of his child. His own eyes filled with tears of shame and regret. He ran to her and fell to his knees, just as she had knelt in the market for Mr. David. "Forgive me, my wife," he cried, his voice thick with emotion. "I was blind. I was a fool who could not see the truth even when it was dancing in front of me. Can you ever forgive me?" Mary looked down at the man she had once loved, now humbled and broken by the truth. She did not answer him with words. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the faded photograph. She held it out for him to see. It was all the proof that was needed. The village, which had once watched her leave in shame, now erupted in celebration. They beat drums and sang songs of joy and restoration. Linda, her treachery fully exposed, gathered her things and left the village forever, swallowed by the shame she had created. That evening, as the family, Mary, John, and Sam, sat together for the first time in their own home, a profound peace settled over them. Mary held her baby picture in her hands. It was no longer a tool of magic, it was just a picture, a memory, a part of her story that was now whole again. She was finally, completely back in her rightful place. The river had sung her song back, and now her family's hearts were singing it with her. And they lived, not just in a house, but in a harmony that was sweeter for having been lost and found. The first morning of their new life dawned with a gentle golden light that seemed to bless the compound. For Sam, waking up in his father's house was a strange and wonderful dream. He explored the compound with wide eyes, touching the tools his father used for carving wood, smelling the different flowers in the garden that his mother must have planted long ago. John watched his son, his heart so full of love and regret that it ached. He had missed 10 years of first steps, first words, and bedtime stories. He made a silent promise to the rising sun that he would spend every day making up for that lost time. Mary woke up feeling a weight had been lifted from her soul. The air she breathed felt cleaner, the sounds of the village more friendly. She walked to the cooking hearth, a place she had not touched in a decade, and began to prepare a morning meal for her family. Her movements were slow and deliberate, a rediscovery of a familiar dance. When John and Sam came to sit down, the three of them ate together in a comfortable silence, broken only by the happy chirping of birds outside. It was not yet the easy laughter of old, but it was a beginning, a foundation of peace upon which they could build their future, stronger and more beautiful than before. John knew that words of apology were not enough. A debt of 10 years could not be paid with just, "I'm sorry." That afternoon, he took Sam to the great river that flowed behind the village. He found a spot where the water was calm and clear. "Sam, my son," John said, his voice serious, "this river holds many secrets. It took away your mother's truth and it also brought it back. Today we will ask it to be a witness to my promise." He took a smooth, round stone from the riverbank. He held it in his palm. "This stone is my promise to you and your mother. I promise to be the father you deserve. I promise to listen with my heart, not just my ears. I promise to protect you and guide you." He then handed the stone to Sam. "Now, you throw it into the deepest part of the river. As it sinks to the bottom, my promise becomes part of the river's memory forever." Sam took the stone, felt its cool, heavy weight, and with all his might, threw it far into the water. They watched the ripples spread out in wider and wider circles, touching everything they could see. It was a powerful, silent moment that bonded father and son in a way they had never been before. While John and Sam were at the river, Mary went to a quiet corner of the compound with a small, broken clay pot. It was a pot she had made with her own hands before her exile, a pot that had cracked and been cast aside. She collected the pieces and sat down with a special glue made from tree sap and a powder made from shining gold stone. Carefully, patiently, she began to put the pieces back together. As she worked, she thought about her own life. She too had been broken. She had been shattered by betrayal and exile. But just like this pot, she was being put back together. The cracks were still there, the memories of the pain, the years of struggle, but they were not something to hide. As she filled the cracks with the golden glue, she saw that they became the most beautiful part of the pot, lines of shining gold tracing the story of its breaking and its mending. She was not the same woman she was before. She was stronger, wiser, and her scars were a part of her new beauty. The mended pot would hold water again, and it would be even more precious than before. That evening, as the family sat around a small fire, Mary brought out the mended pot, now shining with its golden veins. She also held her baby photograph. "Sam," she said softly, "for too long a part of my story was missing. And because of that, a part of your story was missing too." She showed him the picture. "When I was a baby, my mother gave me a special name, a spirit name just for me. It was Adanma, which means beautiful daughter. That name was a blessing, a protection. But when the picture was stolen, the connection to that name became weak, like a whisper in a storm." She looked at John, then back at Sam. "But now the connection is restored. My name is Adanma, and you, my son, are part of that name. You are part of that blessing." She then poured a sweet red drink from the mended pot into 3 small cups. "We drink from this mended pot to celebrate that we are mended too. We are whole. We know who we are." As they drank, Sam repeated the name, Adanma. It felt familiar and powerful on his tongue. He was not just Sam. He was the son of Adanma, a woman of strength and beauty, and his story was now complete. Mary never forgot the kindness of Mr. David, the stranger in the market. She also never forgot the shelter given to her by old Mr. Henry. She wanted to thank them in a way that was as special as their help had been. She and John prepared 2 beautiful gifts. For Mr. Henry, they wove a strong, beautiful basket and filled it with the best yams, beans, and a fine new cloth. For Mr. David, they carved a beautiful wooden statue of a mother and child, as a symbol of the family his kindness had helped restore. They could not travel all the way back to her exile village or find the traveling trader, so they did something symbolic. They went to the great river. They placed the gifts for Mr. Henry and Mr. David into a small, strong boat they had made from a gourd. "Great river," Mary prayed, "you carried my truth back to me. Please carry our gratitude to these good men. Let the current of your kindness guide these gifts to them, in spirit if not in body." They set the boat adrift, watching it float away, carrying their thanks on its journey, trusting that the spirit of gratitude would find its way to the right hearts. Many seasons passed. Sam grew into a fine, strong young man, known for his kindness and his wisdom, much like the stranger Mr. David who had helped him long ago. He became a bridge builder in the village, helping to settle arguments and mend friendships. John and Mary grew older, their hair touched with gray, but their love for each other was deeper and more peaceful than it had ever been in their youth. They were respected elders, often asked for advice because they understood the price of lies and the value of truth. One evening, as the family sat watching the sunset, Mary held her first grandchild, a little girl, in her arms. She showed the baby the faded photograph and the mended pot that now sat in a place of honor in their home. "This is our story, little one," she whispered. "A story of how we were lost and how we found our way back. It is a story of how kindness from a stranger and strength from within can change everything." The circle was complete. The song that the river had sung back was now a lullaby for a new generation, a promise that no matter what, love and truth will always find a way to make the heart whole again. And they lived truly and completely happily ever after.